it's now time to test gravity. This is really fantastic. Using technology to augment the human body, this is where we're going with this. This company, Gravity, has been sort of making some really pioneering breakthroughs, and we're going to hear about those now. Anthony, are you there?
Hi, Fayon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, my friend. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks. It's really exciting to be part of this science festival today. So thanks for the organisers for letting us join in.
Absolutely right. It really is. And like I was just saying to Robert, we could do it longer because there's just so much interest in everything we're doing. So let's crack on straight through this. So thank you for joining us. How are you going to tell us about gravity?
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to you about a journey. It's a journey that started with a crazy idea to challenge the way that humans fly. So rather than putting a human inside a helicopter or an aeroplane, could you augment the human body and mind with just the right technology to allow them to fly? And what was the reason for this? Well, it started out just for a bit of fun, just to ask, what if? Now, I'm going to share my screen. Quite a lot of what I'm doing is showing videos today, so hopefully you'll get to see them. It might be a little bit laggy, I apologise for that, but let's give it a try.
And just to say, Anthony, with your presentation, we are going to leave questions until the end. So we need to leave time for that. We've got until 12:05, but do you think we can get to questions by about 5 to 12?
No. Yeah, no problem at all. What I'll do, I'll show you some videos for about 10 minutes and I'll talk through them. And I know it will prompt lots of questions, so please ask them. I'm sure we've got answers to all of your questions. I'm actually looking forward to hearing them. So let me tell you the story and it will prompt questions, I'm sure. So let's just share screen now. Okay, you seeing that?
Yes.
Excellent. So this chap here is Denton Conte, and now clearly he's a remarkable athlete, but what he's showing here is how humans are equipped with the right balance computer to be able to relearn how to remain stable whilst using different parts of our muscle and skeleton system. Now, whilst living in London, this incredible skill inspired someone who Denton was training. This is Richard Browning. He's a former Royal Marine reservist. He's a successful London city trader and someone who had a family background in aviation. And he was the man who started this journey into human flight. He had the idea that if you could balance like this on bars or rings, then perhaps you could balance like this on columns of air from a jet engine. Now, not only did that seem ridiculous to his friends and family, it seemed pretty ridiculous to him too. But here's a man who, he's an innovator. He thrives on learning by experience and, if necessary, learning by failure. And so he just had to experience the failure for himself. So he bought a jet engine. So this is a micro gas turbine engine with about 20 kilos of thrust and a homemade mount to stick it onto his arm, a mop bucket full of jet fuel, and some hearing protection. And you can see it blowing the grass on the other side of the road there. Wow. Now, straight away, he realized that so many of the myths and concerns about this just evaporated. The engine didn't rip his arms off. The rotation didn't pull the turbine off in one direction or another. The noise was manageable and the heat was manageable. So he did the only next logical step and he bought another one. So you can see here how his power jumps are really keeping him levitating in the air just a little bit longer than a normal jump. And this is about 40 kilos of thrust pushing up his arms. And it was still perfectly manageable. So where would you go next? He bought two more and put them on. So there's a real sense of balancing on columns of air from the jet exhaust coming out of Richard's arms here. Long, slow jumps, but he's now staying up in the air. But there wasn't enough lift to overcome his weight. So where do you go next? That's right, 3 on each arm. This is nearly 70 kilos of thrust up each arm. Very heavy, pretty dangerous, but a valuable part of the learning journey. This was, after all, a series of controlled experiments. This wasn't going to work, but there is enough thrust now. So the next step seemed to make sense, moving some of those engines onto his legs. Now, humans use their legs to balance, to move. Our legs are stronger, so surely this would be easy. So we started out with lower thrust, one engine on each arm, one on each leg. Let's have a look at this. Doesn't quite work as we all might have expected. And actually, having that safety tether, which prevented him from falling, actually provided a fifth force on his body. So 1, 2, 3, 4 on his arms and leg, and then a fifth force that was pulling on his back, which was actually unpredictable, uncontrollable, and it actually hindered his progress. So maybe we'll get rid of the tether and keep all the engines. So now we've got 2 engines on each arm, 1 on each leg. So we know there's enough thrust now. Starting to get there. But actually, having leg jets didn't work particularly well. Now, if you imagine holding a dog over a paddling pool or over a swimming pool, if anyone's done that, their legs just start to paddle just by instinct. And it seems that when humans' feet leave the floor, we do the same sort of thing. We try to run to regain traction. Now, when you've got 20 kilos of thrust blasting out of each of those running legs, what happens is as you start to move, it will push your leg and then your whole body moves and you start to go in ways you don't intend. And so having to relearn, again, like we talked about at the start, having to relearn how the human body can maintain balance. There was all sorts of other learning points about leg jets as well. So recirculating the exhaust from the arm jet went down into the leg jet. Jet engines like cold air, we can talk about that in a bit, and so putting hot air into them makes them lose thrust. Or maybe even just his feet getting too hot standing on the ground because the exhaust was heating up the concrete. But all the ingredients were there, and so by making technical adjustments, relearning a different method of balance to counter your natural reactions, this happened.
Wow.
Now, that was the very first 6-second human flight in a suit made of jet engines. Richard Browning had done it. Well, almost. At the very least, he proved that the concept was technically possible. The next step was to learn to fly the thing. And he did that in secret. During this period, there was lots of development to the jet suits. The leg engines moved from the legs onto his back. Those 2 engines were combined into one larger, more powerful single engine, and Richard created the company Gravity Industries to develop and to market the concept. And in the space of about 18 months, he reached this end result.
Wow. Amazing. My goodness, look at that. That is so cool. Oh my goodness. What's the cost? I want to know the cost. I want one.
Oh, we can talk about all of that in a bit.
Was that Chris Evans? heavens just then from radio.
He's met all sorts of famous people as a result of doing this.
Wow, awesome.
So here it is then, the world's first jet suit made up of 5 microgas turbine engines. There's a back jet, twin arm mounts. Each jet suit is tailored to fit each pilot. The whole thing, well, this is remarkable now, is completely 3D printed. It's got 2 fuel bladders, a helmet with a heads-up display, and I am sure that you've got lots of questions. So, although it never gets boring watching it in action, I think let's hear some of the questions you've got, Fayan, and then any that we've got from the floor as well.
Okay, well, they have to come just from the floor because there's so many.
Okay, good.
Will be answered as we go along. So, Biswal Chowdhury wants to know, how long did he work for Gravity, first of all?
How long did I work for Gravity? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the Gravity team is actually made up of a small group of people from all over the world that a lot of them have other jobs as well. So there's a small core team that do the research and the development, and then there's a number of us that are supporting from all over the world. So I've been supporting Gravity in a number of different ways for about 2 years now.
Fantastic. And there's a question come in as, have you, and I know the answer to this, have you ever flown?
I have flown. I'm very pleased to say I have flown. Now, one of the ways we train pilots to fly this is we've gone back to the tether. So we've got in fact, I'll show you the training rig. It's good to see while I talk through it. Right, here we go. Excuse me. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, I'm hoping everyone else can then as well. So imagine a giant metal frame the size of a house, and with a zip wire across it. And what we do is we start off on low power and let people get used to the incredible feeling of having jet engines strapped to your body. Start to build the power up a little bit more each time. And oh no, I've just been told you can't see it. Terribly sorry. Hang on. Oh, sorry. Okay, not to worry. I've described it anyway. So a big metal frame with a tether hanging from it, and you then use that to practice safely learning to fly, because if you fall, then it'll catch you. And then increase the power more and more, and eventually we remove the tether once people are ready, and then they can fly anywhere they want.
Fantastic. Levan wants to know, is it true that because there is no air resistance, the hammer and feather will fall at the same speed?
Okay, well, that's referring to inside a vacuum. Now, we don't fly this inside a vacuum because that would mean we'd be up in space, although it is actually quite similar to one of the ones that the astronauts use to do some of their spacewalks, so using forces to move themselves around in 3D space. But the pilots who fly the Gravity jet suits, there absolutely is air resistance against us. Now, humans are not aerodynamic. We don't have wings, we don't have aerofoils. The only way we can fly is like this, is using lots and lots of thrust. So we have to overcome gravity, first of all, and then we have to overcome, exactly as has been said there, the air resistance. And that's what these engines allow us to do.
Okay, there's a question. Have you had any projects other than experimenting with how people fly?
Have I had a project? Gosh, I've had hundreds of projects, and I think anybody who's working in engineering or science or anything innovative and exciting just is naturally drawn towards projects and trying things out. And I would encourage everyone to do that. It almost doesn't matter at this stage what it is you're experimenting with or have got a project in, but just do it. And the more you do, the more you'll start to realize where your interests lie and what you're good at. So, yes, I have, but I couldn't even list them all now.
For another show. Vikram Chauhan is asking, what is the gas that is thrusting the man in the video?
Okay, well, the engines are jet engines, so exactly the same sort of jet engine that you'd find on the side of a jumbo jet, an aircraft that you go on holiday with. They're just a lot smaller. So they use fuel. So there's two fuel bladders on our back, and that kind of fuel is called Jet A1. So it's jet fuel, but it's just kerosene. You can actually run this on diesel. So the same fuel that goes in your family car, you could run these jets on. It's burnt inside the combustion chamber. This explodes and then fires hot exhaust out of the other end. Now, those of you who've done Newton's laws at school, which I'm sure is all of you, will understand that if you're pushing something out of one end, the thing you're pushing it out of moves in the opposite direction. And that's what's happening here. So by forcing the exhaust out of the end of the nozzles of the jet engine, the engines, which are strapped to us, makes us fly in the opposite direction.
Gotta say,
now, we've got... Sorry, go on.
Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't hear that one, Faye. I'm sorry.
Don't try this at home.
Well, if any of you have ever done a bottle rocket with water, then you compress the air inside and then it pushes out the water. And the rocket goes in the opposite direction. That's essentially all we're doing. These are, we're using the chemical reaction of combustion inside the rockets rather than compressed air and water like you do in your bottle rocket. But in theory, you've already tried this at home. This is the same sort of principle.
Okay, that's fine then. Haris Hassan is asking, would he also have to account for the weight of the jets and the fuel? Is that why there was not enough thrust? That's
exactly right. You're really thinking carefully about this now. It's not just the weight of the pilot that we've got to lift off the ground. It's the weight of the pilot with the engines, with the fuel, and then the airframe that holds it all together. Now, if you add more fuel, you'll be able to fly for longer, but then you're heavier. So then you're going to need bigger engines. Now, they're heavier as well, which means you then need more fuel. And there's this balance that everyone who's building any kind of aircraft at all, whether it uses wings, whether it's a helicopter, whether it's this just using thrust, anyone has to balance the weight of the aircraft, the weight of the payload or the pilot, the amount of fuel it can carry, and all of those things are a very careful balance. So yes, absolutely, we have to consider the weight of all of those things, and including the weight of the pilot. I had to lose a bit of weight before I could fly. I was too heavy.
Okay, Natalie and Noxie was asking about how much does the jet engine cost?
So the jet suit, we call it, so it's a suit made up of a number of different jet engines. Now, they're not really, a couple of them have been sold, and there's a number of different applications where they could be used in industry. They're about the price of a house, shall we say.
Wow, okay, a house in London?
Question, okay. So about £350,000, I think it is.
Okay, all right. My husband's going to come home and find a for sale sign outside my house.
Exactly. What would you rather have? What would you rather have?
A suit.
It's not so much about selling them to people because, if you imagine there's a lot of training involved. We're not really making them to sell them to people because we don't really see people flying around getting their shopping or flying to school in them or anything like that anytime soon. But what's being worked on is a race series. So imagine a number of jet suit pilots racing each other around obstacles over water, over land, with huge crowds cheering, and you can follow the celebrity pilots. Does that sound pretty interesting?
Yeah.
Do you want to see a clip of that?
Yeah, you can.
Let's see if I can find that.
While finding that, can you answer this question from Toby Eves? How much power does it take for each second of airtime with the engines?
Okay, so talking about power here is probably a bit misleading, but let's talk about how much fuel we burn, and it's I think it's each engine, or rather the whole suit, is burning about 4 litres every minute. So 4 litres of fuel every minute. And that creates enough power to lift the pilot off the floor. But what we say is it's about the equivalent of 1,000 horsepower. So that's the sort of the number that you can throw around. I Right, I found the presentation. I will do a share screen and you can have a look what jet suit racing would look like. Are you seeing that?
I can see there's, yeah, I can see the screen. I can't see anybody racing yet. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Yeah, I can see it. Cool. Where is this being filmed?
This was at a lake in Reading. There you go, someone's crashed.
What fun.
So things have moved on quite a bit since this video, and we've now got pilots that are trained and have been increasing their skill level, getting faster, doing more dynamic maneuvers, and getting sponsors. And we were due to have our first race out in Bermuda, but it was going to be in March, and obviously that had to stop. But if you, I mean, if everyone who's watching starts looking at Take on Gravity on Instagram and YouTube, then you'll be able to see what's happening and all the developments leading up to the first big official race series.
Oh gosh, it's so exciting. It really is. Did we cover, just for Nidarko, did we cover how heavy the suit was?
I didn't get asked that question, but I've got the answer for you. So with the fuel in it, it probably weighs about 30 to 35 kilos. So about the same as a couple of heavy suitcases. But once it's on your back, it's actually, it's okay. Now, if you think about this, as soon as the engines start firing up, they actually take off some of their own weight. So it feels like you're not really wearing anything. And then when you throttle up even more, all of a sudden you weigh nothing as well. So it's only heavy if you're just standing around wearing it for a long time. But actually it's quite comfortable when it's on.
Fantastic. And Prat Joshri is asking, is there any programming involved in this?
We are using the most sophisticated computer imaginable, and every single one of you has got it already. That's what makes this work so well, is that we are using the human brain to control the vectors of thrust. So if you tried to program a robot to ride a bicycle, it would be really difficult to do it. You think about the number of different things that are working together, balance and visual cues, all of this. Yet a 5-year-old can learn it in a weekend. So not the jet suit, I mean riding a bike. That was so using what we know well, which is our arms and our legs and our bodies and our information from our mind, you can just spend a few sessions learning to fly, and you start to feel what thrust up your arms feels like, and then you control how high you are by moving your arms. So if your arms are up, you're not flying. As soon as you push that thrust down, you then take off, and you lift your arms up, you go down. Once you've worked out that balance, you can do it. Now, we had a gymnast who had a go on this, and he got into a stable hover, which is a sort of milestone in training that you can hold yourself perfectly still in the air, and it took him just 4 minutes to learn to get into a stable hover.
Cool. This is so interesting.
But you know, some people really, have that sort of natural ability with balance and core strength and sort of, understanding where their bodies and arms are. But yes, we use a computer. It's all up here.
All up here, the most powerful computer that you'll ever need. And Vidang Panit is asking, what is the jet engines, or what are they usually used for?
Great question. They're usually used in a number of different things, but predominantly in radio-controlled aircraft. So some, really serious modelers will use jet engines in small-scale models. They're used in also some military applications as well. So these sorts of engines already exist, but what we've done is optimize them for this particular application.
Okay. Fantastic stuff. So we have covered, and we've got more time. Good. We've got a good 7 minutes or so.
Plenty more I could tell you, or plenty more I could show you. here's something. Say again, sorry.
Do show us something else while I call up some more questions.
Well, this is something that people don't normally get to see. I sent a message to Richard Browning about half an hour before the start of this and said, because he's back in the lab now, the research and development lab, and I said, could you have a sweep around, have a look with your camera, so I could show basically an exclusive preview of what it looks like inside the lab. So this doesn't normally get seen, but I will flash it up now. I'm hoping you can see it. Excuse me. Okay, am I sharing screen now?
Not quite, not yet, but we're waiting. We're happy to wait for a second. Can you answer a question while you're looking for that?
Yeah, I can, but I'll talk through a bit though. So you see a number of different suits there, the sort of development of it. You can see it's sort of fully 3D printed there, all the different helmets he's used. There's Iron Man's helmet, obviously. He's flown wearing the full Iron Man armor. There's some of the old suits as well, some of the early development stuff. They're the original arm mounts up there. I think we get to see the 3D printer shortly. There's one of the 3D printers. There's all the kind of tools and materials that are there. There's a jet suit being worked on by the looks of it on the bench. Various experimental 3D printed parts, and there all the kind of lanyards from all the events he's done. Hundreds of events all over the world. There you go.
Wowzers. Well, I'm hoping everybody got to see that because my screen froze. So we'll soon get to hear.
Well, I'll put it on again while I answer your questions then.
Thank you, thank you. So how do the micro engines work? If we haven't covered that one, I don't think we did.
Well, they work in the same way as normal jet engines. So they suck cold air in. That goes into a compression chamber where it is compressed, and the fuel is injected into that compression chamber over a glow plug. It then creates an explosion. It's as simple as that. There's an explosion inside a combustion chamber. That explosion turns a turbine. At the other end of the turbine, there's a fan which sucks more air in. So as every time it explodes, it sucks more air in, and it gets into something called self-sustainment, where it will keep itself running as long as there's fuel being pumped into it.
Wow. Okay. And a question here: how many G-forces? Sorry, I've just slipped down from another question. Right, let me go. Here we go. Sebastian Sorisco is asking, how many G-forces is the man pulling whilst flying?
Right. Now, for those of you who don't know, G-force is that sensation you feel when you drive a car over a bump, and you can feel that sort of that sensation. And it comes from your body experiencing forces upon it that are greater than you would normally experience on Earth. Now, we've got some people who are working at universities to kind of measure those sorts of G-forces, attaching different pieces of equipment onto the pilot to measure that. And I've not seen what the readings that come out of that are. But I know that some of the really rapid dynamic stops that Richard can do and some of the race pilots can do, they can accelerate very quickly and they can decelerate very quickly. And I suspect there's about 4 or 5 G being exerted on their body for a very short space of time.
Thank you. Combined question. How long did it take to make the suit in order for the person to fly? And have you ever been in that suit?
Okay, well, I mentioned before that the suits are 3D printed. So the back parts, some of the arm mounts are 3D printed in polymer, plastic, and then there's other parts that are 3D printed in aluminium. There's some fuel lines and connectors and a few batteries. But because it's all 3D printed, you could probably make one in a day. You could, depending on the type of 3D printer, maybe a few days. If the engines were already there, then it doesn't take long to actually build it. And the great thing is, because all of those parts are interchangeable and 3D printed, you can experiment with different arm mounts, with a different back set, that sort of thing. And then the final part of the question was, and have I ever been in one of those 3D printed ones? And the answer is yes, I have.
Too right. Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. We've got a few more minutes. Do you have another minute's worth of video to show us or anything like that?
Let's have a look. Yeah, we've got some. What shall we show you?
I have other questions. Oh, can I just quickly ask you this one before you show your video? Padma Apana is asking, is it possible to develop this kind of engine with fire engines or hot air, cold air circulation? By this, I mean using the circulation to make a small tornado.
There's all sorts of things in that. You wouldn't use these engines to do anything other than, well, no, that's not true. You could, do you know what? Yes, why not? Experiment with it. Give it a try. That's what this was all about. No one really knew whether this was going to work at the start of this, so I'm not going to say no to anything like that. Yes, get one and try it.
Cool. Somebody was asking, didn't Gravity with Colin Firth a few weeks ago?
Colin Firth is a YouTuber. He's actually learnt to fly the jet suit as well. Quite a bit of things together with Colin Firth. He's a great guy. I've met him a few times, and I think those of you who are following either Colin or Gravity on Instagram and YouTube will certainly have seen that collaboration. Yes.
Cool. Did you find the video?
Let's see. What have we got? Let's have a look at this one. Is this the one I showed you before?
This is the one we saw before.
Ah, sorry, right, let's go to a different one.
While you're finding the next video.
Oh, well, here we go, show you some pictures. So, Guinness World Records, he's flown up at above 85 miles an hour. Now, if you think about just how fast that is, that's flying over water, used a wingsuit on his legs, a couple of wings you can see on the bottom there on his ankles, but getting up to 85 miles an hour is absolutely staggering speed. Let's have a look. We've got, seen that one? Seen that one?
Yeah.
I'll talk about this. This is something you can access on our website. So gravity.co. It's not .com or .co.uk. It's just .co. And if you click on the STEM button, you'll find a series of PDF downloads that talk about Newton's laws, muscles and skeletons, how your ear works, because obviously this makes an awful lot of noise. There's all sorts of, so much science going on in this. And we've got a worksheet, well, not a worksheet, a sort of information sheet about all of these different aspects. So if you have a look at gravity.co and click on the STEM link, but also have a look at Instagram, have a look at YouTube. There's, as you said, Fayon, this is so cool. That never goes away. You know, it really is cool. And there's so many amazing things to look at if you go onto that website.
It's amazing. We have got about a minute or so I'm going to combine a few questions. Will this product be part of aerospace travel in the future? And do you do anything except from creating these awesome jetpack suits?
Will it be part of aerospace travel in the future? It probably will be for certain people, whether that's sort of in the military or in search and rescue or something like that. There may well be people using this, but I don't think particularly that we'll be using them for traveling around. But if you think about 100 years ago, someone probably said that about noisy, dirty cars. And then, so who knows where it's going to go in the future. And doing this was a job that simply didn't exist just a few years ago. So the people watching this now who are yet to make a decision about what jobs they're going to do you know what? Yes, maybe you will be the people that will set up the infrastructure and the refueling systems and all that sort of stuff so that everyone will be flying to school and flying to work in the future. And the question, does Gravity do anything else? In terms of, well, first of all, you can buy your T-shirts and caps and various things like that, so you can do all that through the website. But what we do is public events, so air shows, and demonstrate it to the public. And every time we do that, we usually have some sort of STEM capability with us as well. But the main focus is the race series now.
Well, there's quite a few people asking if they can fly one. I'm like, yeah, get behind me. So yeah, there's a big
And I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you asked that, because that is something else that is on offer. So experience days. So yes, the answer is yes. If
Wow.
you are, if you meet the criteria, which I suspect that children won't, but maybe when they grow up, or you can get your parents to have a go, then yes, you can do that through the website as well. You can make an inquiry and you can book your own experience flying the jet suit on that training truss on a tether and feel what it feels like to have jet engines strapped to your body.
It's like 18 or over, 21 or over.
I think it's 18 or over. Yeah, but there's a number. It's worth, if you're genuinely interested, then make an inquiry, and the team will talk to you about it. But it's not really a children's thing. You need to. It's not for children.
Okay, all right then. Not long, guys, not long. So just to finish on one other question, it was an anonymous question, and they were asking, when you got to fly, were you nervous? Were you excited? How did you feel?
I had spent a lot of time watching other people learn to fly. And so I wasn't nervous, I was excited, but I was trying very hard to concentrate and follow the instructions I was being given, and do exactly what I was told. And I found that by listening carefully and by understanding what it was I was trying to achieve, I just got to enjoy it. I just got to relax and enjoy it. And interestingly, when you're flying it, even with all of the noise, and it is horrifically noisy, you've got earplugs in, you've got your helmet on, it's just nice and relaxing. There's nothing quite as relaxing and as enjoyable as flying.
Sounds absolutely awesome. We have ran out of time for you, but if anybody has any more questions, I mean, there's a lot of questions, and I'm so sorry I couldn't get to everybody's questions, but if they want to send their questions on to you, is that okay, or should they do that through us at Enjoy Sutton?
No, that's fine. What I'd suggest, though, is to do it through the number of different social media things we've got already. So if you look up Take On Gravity on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok as well, and Twitter, Take On Gravity, then there's the opportunity to start that conversation. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram as well and see some of my training videos and some of the other projects that I've got up to, then I'm at Quinternational. So Quinternational.
Yeah, I'm all over that already. I'm following you, buddy. It's been fantastic speaking to you, Anthony. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome, Fam. It's great, as I said at the start, to be part of the virtual Sutton Science Festival. So thanks for listening, everyone. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and YouTube.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, another person that we could have spoken to for hours on end, but do go to his social media pages and just follow and see what is going on. So thank you so much, Anthony.